One of the biggest concerns then is equity concerns. When you have a you have a challenge to society like the pandemic has been, the burdens are spread very unequally. The essential workers, are often people of color, take a lot more of the risk. And we start hearing a lot more about, again, privilege from the left and the idea of it being unearned. And that drives a lot of resentment, as it did in the past, as it did in the 1960s and 1970s. And not all of it was about race. Some of it was just about income and about workers versus people who exploit, are thought to exploit labor and so forth, and low wage workers and so forth, and work habits. And there was a lot more going on than just race. Now, individual social credit comes up as a topic, and it's at odds with what we call critical theory, which presumes that everybody belongs to a group and everybody is potentially responsible for what their group has done in the past. But it's a lot more convenient to argue. It's a lot easier to talk about statues and monuments and so forth, and sometimes than it is to deal with policy problems that have to do with actual individual actions. So you come into thinking about maybe national service would be expanded again. Maybe when you have this severe economic shock like we've had from the pandemic, with so many businesses being closed, which I don't personally think they had to be, but that's another matter. Maybe more schemes to redistribute unearned wealth from people with inheritance. Although state laws might get in the way with that concerning trusts, but you could actually not just keep on bumping up the federal deficit. You could try to expect people who are more fortunate to do more, to chip in and join in some kind of national effort. Right now, people are just doing their own thing, as I am. The ability to bond with others emotionally, starting out in your family and community, which then branches out to other communities, that's an important part of equity. And yes, this is a little bit of a Maoist or idea. It's not exactly Marxist, because that's more about class, but it is personalized. It is sort of personalized social justice, which of course was something about the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s. A couple of other things, individual preparedness for hardship is, I think, a virtue, is an important moral issue. Well-rounded people who are well-rounded when they are growing up, can help others with a lot more easily, with less sense of personal sacrifice, than people who kind of are overloaded in one area like I was, and who aren't good enough at the basic things. It's sort of the change your own oil, learn to change your own oil thing, and be able to change a tire for someone else, that kind of thing. That's probably something we should expect more. The ability to step up and share risks and unusual hardships is a big deal. Failure to do so may be viewed as cowardice and may be viewed as a moral life challenge. The novel Gone with the Wind, with Scarlett O'Hara, who loses everything and then gets it back, is kind of the paradigm. A lot of the things about, fundamental rights, they boil down, particularly in the 14th Amendment, to due process, which has more to do with individual privacy and individual agency and equal protection, which has more to do with the idea of belonging to a group and being protected as part of the group, but also being responsible for what your group does, which is more like critical theory and critical race theory. The last topic, and I'll talk more about it in another video very soon, but it's open speech, another speech without gatekeepers, which the internet has facilitated since the late 90s. The main elements of the concern are people can be very influential without necessarily having their skin in the game. There's the whole no spectators idea, where people talk about things where they don't have a personal stake, where where they're not affected, and yet they have the ability to affect the lives of others, which may sound like a paradox. And then the idea that if you want to speak for yourself, you have to be able to speak for somebody else first before you can have a soapbox. That may be something that's coming, what I call the quid pro quo. You would have to be able to raise money for established charities before you could establish your own views. And that open speech could be shut down in emergencies. Our society has gotten pretty unstable with the radicalization and everything. So yes, that's something I'm concerned about. So anyway, this is an outline of how individual rights are sometimes undermined by emergencies and by sudden shocks to the system. Thank you.